All right, welcome back to the deep dive. And this time we're going somewhere pretty special, I think. We're heading back to 1980 to the very first Monsters of Rock festival.
Yeah, this is exciting. And this is, not just any trip back. This deep dive is built on the stuff you send in, listener.
Mhm.
We've got firsthand accounts, photos, set lists, even...
It's like we've got a time machine, right?
Right.
Ready to experience the mud and the mayhem firsthand.
Definitely. But before we jump in, I think it helps to set the scene a bit. It's 1980, metal's on the rise, Reading Festival was the big one, but...
A promoter named Paul Loadsby, he wanted something heavier, something maybe a bit grittier, and only for hard rock and metal, right?
Right. That's how Monsters of Rock was born. And he chose this kind of interesting spot for it. A raceway at Castle Donington. Not exactly, the first place you think of for a metal festival.
But the raceway did have that sloping ground, so everyone could see the stage pretty well.
True.
And for what we've got here, I mean, the pictures really tell the story. It was pouring rain before the festival.
Oh.
Yeah. The whole site was a mud pit. Thankfully, on the actual day, the weather was good. Officially, there were 35,000 people there, but...
Heck.
Well, some folks, like the Samaritans who were there, they said it was more like 70,000.
Yeah, that's a big difference. Guess things weren't quite as organized back then as they are now.
Oh, definitely not. It was the early days. But speaking of organization or lack thereof, let's talk about the stage. It was a single-stage festival, meaning...
Long waits between bands.
Exactly. Can you imagine, like, an hour or more between sets?
Oh, I don't know if my patience would hold up. But hey, at least they had a giant video screen, which was pretty new back then.
Yeah, I got to keep the crowd entertained somehow, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's the story that really captures that anything goes feeling of the early festivals.
Go on, I'm all ears.
So, you know Cozy Powell, the legendary drummer for Rainbow?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Well, he always had these, like, explosive drum solos with pyrotechnics.
Hmm.
And during testing, well, let's just say things didn't go exactly to plan.
Uh-oh. What happened?
Let's just say his drum solo was a bit too explosive. He blew out a big part of the PA system. I think the damage was something like 18,000 pounds.
Ouch. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah, and there were even rumors that the sound was messed up for the whole festival because of it. Imagine that. A metal festival where people complain the music's not loud enough.
Ah, ironic, isn't it? But, all right, let's get to the main event, the bands. We had Rainbow headlining, wrapping up their Down to Earth tour, but also some huge names like Judas Priest, Scorpions, April Wine.
Saxon, Riot, Touch.
Yeah.
Quite the lineup. And looking at this list, with the set list you sent in, listener, it's like a snapshot of metal evolving. You have the giants like Rainbow and Priest, but also...
Up-and-comers like Saxon. They were part of that whole new wave of British heavy metal.
And WOBHM.
Exactly.
Okay, help me out here. I'm not a metal encyclopedia or anything. What exactly is NWOBHM, and why was Saxon being there such a big deal?
Well, the new wave of British heavy metal, it was like this burst of energy in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yep.
These British bands, they were going back to the hard rock roots, fast tempos, powerful vocals, the whole deal. And bands like Iron Maiden, Def Leppard, and Saxon, they were leading the charge. So having Saxon at Monsters of Rock meant it wasn't just for the older bands, it was for the future of metal, too.
Like a passing of the torch.
Yeah, exactly. And to keep things going between sets, they had Neil Kay, this DJ who worked with bands like Iron Maiden, spinning tunes and keeping the energy up.
Okay, so we've got the scene. Muddy field, slightly busted PA system, lineup that bridges the old and new generations of metal. Thousands of excited fans. Yeah. But to really get what it was like, we need to get into these firsthand accounts you've given us, listener.
You're absolutely right. We've got stories from people like Ashley Haynes, Paul Hartshorn, Andy White. They give us a glimpse into that atmosphere, that camaraderie, and of course the legendary Donington mud.
It's about the whole experience, right?
Yeah.
Not just the mud. Like Ashley Haynes, he talks about getting there early, having a beer for breakfast, just enjoying the whole vibe with his friends. It was a pilgrimage, a journey,
Yeah, and the site was well organized considering it was a raceway, but there was one problem. No camping.
Oh, no.
But that didn't stop the diehards. Some people just pitched their tents in the fields nearby, like, we're here for the music no matter what.
That's dedication. No glamping back then, huh?
Not even close. And one guy, Andy White, he lost his prized bullet belt to a security guard who mysteriously disappeared, never saw him again.
Oh, man. Classic festival story.
It really is. Those little moments, But anyway, good news is you could bring your own booze.
Nice.
Not so good news, food choices were limited, and the mud was inescapable.
Sounds like a badge of honor to me. You went to Monsters of Rock, you got to deal with the mud. But speaking of memorable moments, you ever heard about a lead singer swallowing a bee mid-performance?
Oh, yeah. That was the singer from Touch, right?
Right. Talk about a showstopper. And then you have April Wine, not exactly a metal band, but their cover of King Crimson's 21st Century Schizoid Man apparently blew everyone away.
What?
The unexpected stuff.
It is. And speaking of unexpected, one guy missed Judas Priest's entire set because he was stuck in line for a burger.
Oh, no.
Right. But at least someone else got to see Rob Halford ride onto the stage on a Harley.
Now that's an entrance. But, we have to talk about Rainbow's finale.
Of course.
Their set list was a journey. They went from Since You've Been Gone into Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and then boom, Stargazer. It must have been incredible to see Ritchie Blackmore play live.
Absolutely. And we can't forget Cozy Powell's drum solo, hopefully without any explosions this time. And then Blackmore smashing his guitar, the pyrotechnics. Apparently the fireworks at the end, they had to warn planes flying out of East Midlands Airport. That's how intense it was.
Wow. No noise complaints from the neighbors with that going on. Sadly, though, this was Cozy Powell's last gig with Rainbow. Creative differences, I guess.
It happens. But the whole show was filmed, and there are clips on YouTube, so we can still see bits of this legendary performance.
That's awesome. So even with the exploding PA and some financial losses, the first Monsters of Rock was a huge success. It led to all the future festivals at Donington and...
It cemented Donington as a real mecca for metal fans.
Exactly. And for the people who were there, it's more than just a memory. It's like a touchstone. It reminds them of when metal was raw and rebellious and changing so fast. You can really feel that nostalgia in their stories.
That feeling's powerful. Reminds us how music can really connect us to specific moments, And it's not just the music itself, it's the atmosphere, the people, that shared experience.
Right. And they even released some compilation albums with live recordings from the festival. But as we keep digging into Monsters of Rock, we're not just looking at concerts, right? It's about the whole culture of heavy metal.
Exactly. It's about the community, the sense of belonging, how powerful that is for fans.
Absolutely. And that's what we'll explore more as we continue our deep dive into the very first Monsters of Rock.
Looking forward to it. It's kind of crazy to think this one muddy field with a half-broken PA, it turned into the giant Monsters of Rock we know now.
Right. It's easy to forget that in 1980, there wasn't really a metal festival in the UK. Monsters of Rock basically invented that, set the template.
Exactly. It showed everyone, hey, people want this. There's a huge audience for metal. And over the years, it just got bigger and bigger, right? Bigger names, crazier stage shows, more people.
And you think about it now, with these giant festivals with 5 stages going at once. Back then, it was just one stage, longer sets, more time for the bands to really connect with the audience. Must have been a different vibe.
Totally. It is interesting, though, right? Today, it's all about choice. You go to a festival, you can bounce around, see a bit of everything, but there was something kind of special about everyone being focused on the same thing, that shared energy.
Like the whole crowd's on a ride together. And speaking of shared stuff, the thing that jumps out from these firsthand accounts, it's the feeling of community, like you're part of something bigger.
You see that a lot with festivals, but I think with metal, it's even more intense. Music can do that, bring people together, make you feel like you belong, especially live music.
And metal, it's always been seen as a bit rebellious, a bit outsider. So that feeling of belonging, it probably means even more.
I think you're right. It's like a giant family reunion for metalheads.
Right. Swap stories, show off your battle jackets, headbang together.
Don't forget the fashion, all the denim, the leather, the band tees. That was a big part of it, showing you were part of the tribe.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Express yourself, but also be part of this bigger thing. That's what's cool about metal, that mix of individual and collective.
You're an outsider, but you're part of a community. It's kind of at the heart of what metal is all about.
So as we dig into Monsters of Rock, it's not just concerts, right? It's the whole meaning of metal, how it's changed, how it connects with people so strongly.
That's the best part of these deep dives. We're not just skimming the surface. We're getting into the nitty-gritty, the stories, the context. That's what makes these events come alive.
It's about figuring out why these moments matter, why they still resonate with people today.
And for the folks who are actually at that first Monsters of Rock, it's like going back to this huge moment in their lives, back when metal was just starting to become this global thing.
When that muddy field in Donington, it became the center of the metal universe for a day. All these people, all this energy.
And it all started with this idea, wanting something heavier, louder, something that would shake things up.
And from that idea, a monster was born. But the story keeps going, right? It doesn't end there.
No way. What do you think, though? If the people from that first festival, if they could see Monsters of Rock now, all the stages, the crazy productions, what would they make of it?
It's a good question. I mean, It kind of shows you how powerful metal is, that it's still going strong, still changing. It's always pushing boundaries, finding new ways to express itself. And most importantly, it still connects with people. Even though everything's different now, festivals are huge.
Right, but the core stuff, the passion from the fans, the energy of the bands, that sense of community, that's all still there.
Exactly. It's still about that shared experience, that feeling of being part of something bigger.
And that's what we've tried to do in this deep dive, to go beyond just the facts, the dates and the names, to get into those personal stories, the moments that made the first Monsters of Rock so special.
We wanted to understand the whole picture, the context, the history, how it all came together. And for you, listener, you gave us all this amazing stuff to work with. Hopefully this deep dive's been a trip, a way to go back to the beginning of metal festivals.
And hopefully you see the legacy of Monsters of Rock differently now.
It's been awesome to explore all this with you, listener. But before we wrap up, gotta leave you with something to think about.
Go for it.
Close your eyes for a second. Picture yourself in that field in 1980. Thousands of people. The music's blasting, the mud's squishing under your feet. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel?
Let that sink in for a minute. Think about how metal's changed, how festivals have grown, how music can connect us like nothing else. And ask yourself this: what's the next chapter? What new monsters are out there waiting to be discovered?
Makes you wonder, right? What's next for metal? What crazy new sounds? What kind of festivals will there be in the future? Who knows? Maybe someday we'll be doing a deep dive into a festival that started now, and we'll look back to Donington and those first metalheads as the origin story.
Maybe that future festival will figure out the food lines, eh? No more missing Judas Priest for a burger. But really, it's amazing how one event, one day in the mud, could start something so big. It wasn't just the music. It was about giving people a place to belong, to be themselves, be part of something.
And that goes way beyond just metal, right? That feeling of connection, being part of something bigger. That's why people love festivals, love music.
Totally. And we tried to capture that in this deep dive, to go past the basic stuff and really feel what it was like to be there at that first Monsters of Rock.
And we couldn't have done it without you, listener. You sent in all this awesome stuff, the accounts, the pictures, everything. We took a trip back in time together, all the way to that muddy field, saw the beginnings of metal festivals.
Hopefully you got to relive it a bit, see how important that first Monsters of Rock really was.
It's been amazing going through all this. But as we wrap up, gotta ask you one last thing.
Hit me.
What's the thing that sticks with you the most about that first Monsters of Rock? The bands, the energy, the sense of community, something else?
Let us know in the comments. What did you take away from this trip back to the dawn of metal festivals?
And until next time, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and keep the music loud.